New Orleans on a warm October day, 84-year-old Lester Pearson uses a cane to slowly walk out of the Louisiana State Penitentiary as a free man. After 57 years in the Angola prison, the path to freedom in a state dubbed the incarceration capital of the world has been a long and uncertain one. Since 1964, Pearson has been locked up for murder after signing a plea agreement in which he was promised a chance at parole after serving 10 years and 6 months. It never happened. At the time, Pearson said a guilty plea was the best hope for a black man charged with murder and facing the electric chair in the Jim Crow South. The former geriatric prisoner is slower, noticeably quiet, hard of hearing, and struggles with his words. After those 10 years and 6 months, no one ever told me nothing, Pearson told the PBS NewsHour. Lester Pearson, 84, leaves Angola prison in Louisiana using a cane after serving 57 years. His plea deal was for 10 years, 6 months. Photo by Andrew Hundley, Louisiana Parole Project. I always thought that I'd die in prison. I've seen so many people die, he said, 3 weeks after being released. I'm not mad about it, I'm disgusted. I did way more than my time. I'm not the same person.
The Louisiana Parole Project said Pearson is one of approximately 60 so-called 1/6 lifers in the Louisiana State Penitentiary, commonly known as Angola, who plead guilty not only to avoid execution, but also with the understanding they would have a chance at freedom after a decade. Today, they range in age from 66 to 86. 5 1/6 lifers have recently been released after more than 50 years behind bars. Prison reform advocates pushing for their release said it's long overdue to address the broken promises of the past for the aging population. Back then, it was an overwhelmingly enticing offer. I think that our clients accepted that offer, and then to have that promise broken, it is a real travesty of justice, said Jane Hogan, an attorney with the Louisiana Parole Project. The goalpost shifted, and the door was slammed on these men. They were essentially forgotten, and efforts at having the deal honored were basically ignored. The Parole Project is a nonprofit spearheading the Forgotten Men Project to free inmates who have served extreme sentences, with special consideration for black prisoners. Andrew Hundley, the executive director of the Parole Project, said 80% of the 1/6 lifers and 73% of all inmates serving life sentences at Angola are black. If you were a black person in the 1960s that received a life sentence after a plea deal, you were much more likely to be forgotten. This is one of the saddest injustices, Hundley said. These people were wronged and due relief. Shame on us for keeping someone in that place so long that it's hard to release them into society. The sentencing guidelines were established in 1926 by Louisiana lawmakers. For the next 46 years, it was common to release people with life sentences after they'd served the 10 years and 6 months, so long as they showed good behavior during incarceration. As laws stiffened, the men who pleaded guilty before 1973 were left in prison, despite the deals they agreed to. The state repeatedly raised the parole eligibility requirement. The state first raised it to 20 years in 1973, and then again to 40 years in 1976. By 1979, the chance of parole was gone altogether. Generations later, the cases are bringing renewed attention to the plight of some of Angola's oldest prisoners. The history and the reality of the 1/6 lifers are baffling even for reform-minded judges and prosecutors in Orleans Parish. Of the 18 cases identified by the Parole Project in Orleans Parish, 5 have been resentenced to time served and released. Another 8 cases are imminent and are expected to be resolved by the end of the year. After waiting so long, most 1/6 lifers are resentenced and released in less than a month. In exchange, they agree not to file claims over the prolonged prison stays. All but one involved black prisoners. Advocates noted that a 2013 study by Louisiana State University indicated the recidivism rate was between 5 and 8% for those who had been convicted of first-degree murder in the state. Many stakeholders are not even aware that these cases exist. We spend a lot of time educating people. Everyone's first response is that it's impossible, Hundley said. Orleans Parish District Attorney Jason Williams speaks at a news conference. Under his office, Williams approved the release of the 5/10/6 lifers. Photo by Orleans Parish District Attorney staff. The first cases were brought to the attention of New Orleans Progressive District Attorney Jason Williams, who was elected last year, promising reform and to root out unjust convictions and sentences from the past. Williams' newly created Civil Rights Division recommended the recent releases, and similar deals are in the works for other lifers who were convicted in Orleans Parish. Williams stresses his office is not downplaying the severity of the crimes and said, "So far, no victims have objected to the sentence reductions. A number of people are surprised to find out that somebody is still in jail. A number of people want to have a conversation, not a confrontation," Williams said. The victims' families and survivors have proven to be overwhelmingly supportive of our criminal justice reform. Williams also said the work hasn't been easy because of the ages of the cases. Emily Ma, the Civil Rights Division chief under the Orleans Parish District Attorney's Office, said they've made an unprecedented effort in victims' outreach work in all cases. "We really work with the survivors to ask what would help them in this process," she said. The Parole Project said the Orleans Parish District Attorney is the first to consider the 10/6 lifers as a class, finding out that there are men in their 70s and 80s who are languishing in jail. "I was surprised and taken aback," Williams said. "These were not mistakes. The Forgotten Men is just one of many broken promises to blacks and minorities in the United States. It also sends a clear message that there is no bigger monument to white supremacy and racism than Angola State Penitentiary." Angola is a notorious maximum security prison near St. Francisville, Louisiana, taking its nickname from a former plantation that used to sit on its 18,000 acres, surrounded on three sides by swamp and the Mississippi River. With more than 6,000 prisoners, it is the largest prison in the United States and is about the size of Manhattan.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.